Hello, and welcome back to Give Paws Hobby. I am Kyle Frost, and we are once again in the game garage where it is only 80 degrees. Nice and cool. Today we are finally getting to the table. If you watched my top 10 video, this is one of my top 10. We're finally getting to the table. This doesn't actually tell you much. There we go. Pax Pamir 2nd edition, which is a gorgeous game, as you will see if you haven't already. But before we get any further into the video about what's on the table, I first want to give a special Friends Hello. If you would like a special Friends Hello on the next video, go ahead and like, subscribe, or comment down below. And yes, I am stealing with a hat tip this concept to Glass Half Dead, a channel that I started watching when I got the intent of joining Kill Team, at least getting into the hobby on that. And you would know that if you've seen that thing on this channel here. So again, if you'd like to get a second hello reserved just for friends, you know what to do. Go on down, helps the channel out, and then you get something special. And if you heard it and you're not one of those people, didn't count for you. Anyways, let's get to Pax Pamir, and we'll see how Wakhan works. Alright, so what you see here is a setup for a 2-player game, and one of the players is Wakhan. So thematically, Wakhan represents a radical ideology that has taken hold across the region and transcends traditional loyalties. So, as you're going to see, Wakhan will still play this game of the 3 different factions on the board, will be vying for control, but will not have one of these loyalty tiles. Wakhan has a pragmatic loyalty, which means she is going to be loyal to whoever or whichever faction is going to benefit her the most, which does come across, at least at first blush, as a bit of unfair, but that's, for all the cleverness of this deck, it is a robot. It's not going to be able to think so many turns ahead as humans might not. Not that all of our turns or all of our plans always pan out, but the pragmatic loyalty is what's going to keep Wakhan from getting completely just backed into a corner, as you will see with these rules. So on the setup, to begin, it's the same, the card, all the cylinders, they get 4 rupees just like normal people would. They would not be given a loyalty dial like I just talked about. You will shuffle all 24 of these cards, which make up Wakhan's brain, as I will explain in more detail. And then it helps to have these 2 kind of helper cards here that give you just some reminders nearby, which I also have right here on this sheet, which we'll be going over. Now, one of them you need to have nearby, which is her gifts and prizes, as opposed to a normal player's loyalty dial, where you would put your cylinders down there. Hers, since she's loyal to herself, not any one of these, are going to go on this card. So this one, you don't necessarily need to have, because if you have this page printed out like I do, this is essentially right here. I could just put this card on this board, or paper. Aside from that, Wakhan will be placed to the right of the last player to choose their loyalty, which means that she will always start the game. Now, this is set up for a playthrough that I will also record and upload to the channel, so I'm not going to give away too much in this deck because I don't want to have more knowledge than I should, but we'll just go ahead and assume for right now I'm going to say I'm going to be loyal to Russia. I'm going for some of these things out here. I see 3. One of the ways to choose your starting loyalty, it's not always the most efficient or the best, is I see 3 things here that are yellow, and I'm going to say we're going for Russia, which means it's going to be Wakhan's turn. Now, a couple of important things to note. Wakhan can be faced by 1 or 2 human players, but that doesn't mean if it's 2 players and Wakhan, it is not a 2 versus 1 scenario. It is an everybody for themselves situation. You cannot play this co-op against Wakhan. Some general rules to go over in the rule book. These do not appear on this cheat sheet. Wakhan must pay all costs, including bribes, just like a regular player. If her court cards have a special ability that says she may do something, she always will. And like we talked about before, she is effectively loyal to all coalitions. She can hold loyalty prizes and patriots belonging to different coalitions, which is not the case for meatbag players. Nevertheless, she will always assume one single pragmatic loyalty. So what does that mean in terms of gameplay? She's always loyal to the leftmost loyalty on the AI card that is not shared by any other player. This loyalty is used to determine the block she places, moves, and battles with. So do not use her pragmatic loyalty to determine who rules a region. Instead, when assessing whether Wakhan is competing for control of a region, count her tribes and only the most numerous armies of a single coalition in that region towards the number of her ruling pieces. So, if we flip over this first card here, and we'll explain how exactly these cards work, we see that her pragmatic loyalty up at the top has Russia, Afghanistan, English. So, since I am loyal to Russia right now, her pragmatic loyalty says she's going to be loyal to Afghanistan, the green cubes, because it's the leftmost loyalty that no other players are loyal to. So let's take a look over here at Punjab. I've laid out an example where I currently have one army, the Russian army, and one of my tribes. And Wakhan has one of her tribes, one Afghanistan army, and two British armies. So in this case, even though her pragmatic loyalty says that she is going to be green with Afghanistan, she disregards that and she goes with the faction that gives her the most ruling pieces. In this case, it would be British because they have two armies. So her two armies and one tribe is greater than my one army and one tribe, which means that at this juncture, Wakhan would take ownership of Punjab. Now, if she ever needs to choose a suit, Wakhan will always select the current favored suit. If she must discard a leverage card and has no coins, she does not need to discard cards. So she's considered to be discarding from her hand, which is also an option for us meatbags. And even though she doesn't have a hand, the game is giving her a leg up and pretends that she does. Now, it says frequently, she will have to choose a specific court card. To decide which card to choose, she will always pick the card with the highest priority as described in the list on the right. So this card priority, that's in gray on the page, is also reflected on her little helper card, is also the top of the charts on this helper page. All of them say card priority. So at the top, she's always first going to choose an opponent's card. If there are multiples, she's going to choose the one that matches the favored suit. If there are multiples, so on and so forth, Patriot of the dominant coalition has a prize that matches the dominant coalition, a different Patriot, it is leveraged, highest ranking, as in the number of stars underneath the logo, or highest numbered card, which, if you're unaware, is the small number in the bottom right-hand corner of the card. So, for Wakhan's turn, she's going to take an AI card and place it face up to the immediate right of her AI draw deck, and is going to form a face-up discard pile. You will use this card and the back of the card on top of the draw deck to make decisions for Wakhan. If the draw deck is empty, reshuffle the entire discard pile, including the card just drawn, to create a new draw deck and draw again. At this point, Wakhan is going to perform two actions. To determine which actions Wakhan takes, look at the central action selection of the drawn AI card. Start at the top action and work your way down, performing each valid action in turn until she has performed two actions. If she still has an action left after performing the bottom action, which is always going to be radicalized, which I'll talk about in a second, start again at the top, work your way down again until two non-bonus actions have been taken. So once both actions are used, or if there are no valid choices available, she will take any available bonus actions from the court cards in her tableau that have not been used for actions. When taking bonus actions, she'll always start with the leftmost unused card on her court and take the leftmost action on the card, skipping any other actions that cannot be taken. So this is just like a meatbag depending on what the suit is, favored suit, you get to take free actions from those cards in your court. So even if Wakan's actions that are laid out on her AI cards don't tell her to do something like battle or move or purchase gifts, if that is part of the favored suit and it's on a card in her court, she will be able to take those actions. There's still the limit of 1 action per card, just like there would be for us. Now, Wakan's ambition. This is one of the call-outs in this 3-page explainer in the back of the rulebook that's made a little bit better on this helper sheet. And I'll explain in a second, but when you are choosing to go through her actions on her card, she circuits if there is a dominance card in the market. So if she's able to purchase a dominance check and score the most victory points and or win the game, she will use her action to do that, regardless of the actions listed on her card. There's also some other things that she would do, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Alright, so at the bottom of each of her action cards is going to be the term radicalize, which is an action that humans are not able to take. She does not use the same core actions that we do, purchase and play. For instance, on our first turn, we can purchase 1 card and play it, or we could purchase 2 cards. Later on, if we had 2 cards in our hand, we could play both of them. If nothing else is available on her card, she would radicalize twice. And what radicalize does is she's going to purchase 1 card from the market and then attempt to play it immediately. And this counts as a single action. So, when she is radicalizing, she's going to consider a few things. So first up, if there are specific instructions, you are to follow them. Ties are decided by the cheapest card in the market with the highest card number breaking any further ties. So in this instance, it says radicalize the card that would place the most armies and or roads. So she needs to follow the instructions that are there. If it specifically tells her to radicalize a certain card over a different one, you have to go with that first. Now, if there is a dominance check in the market, this is the first time we're going to flip over to this helper sheet, because I think this is more beneficial than reading the paragraph that's in the rule book. This is what we refer to as Wakan's ambition. So you're going to go down this flowchart starting in the upper left-hand corner. Will she score the most victory points from and have enough money for dominance check? If yes, purchase the dominance check. So if she can buy it, has the money for it, and she'll get the most points, do it. If no, go down. Next up, is the AI card action tax, betray, build, battle, move, gift, or radicalize with specific instructions? If yes, take that card action asterisk, and we'll come back to the asterisks. If no, keep on going. Is there a dominant coalition? If no, purchase the cheapest card that places the most spies or tribes. And yes, 0 counts as most. Asterisk. If there is a dominant coalition, purchase the cheapest patriot of the dominant coalition. If no purchasable patriot, radicalize. Asterisk. So the asterisks that we've seen on 3 of those actions means Wakan will not purchase a dominance check as a result of these instructions. So the only time she will, she'll always notice it. And this for me is one of the most challenging things to remember about Wakan. As soon as a dominance check enters the market, just like a human player, that should be cause for alarm. That should be send up a big maroon flag that says, uh-oh, we need to change our strategy. We might not purchase this dominance card, but I need to think about this game differently than I did before this was in the market. So this is one of the ways that Wakan does, in fact, react to the game, at least, if not exactly like a human, sort of in that vein. So quick alibi on Wakan's ambition. This flowchart is really great, but there is one thing you need to add in because it's not reflected. So if you get down to the step, is there a dominant coalition? If you go to no, purchase the cheapest card that places the most spies or tribes, that is true. That is what she would choose to do because that's what's going to get a failed dominance check, give her a better chance of winning. However, when you get down to yes, there is a dominant coalition, first it says purchase the cheapest patriot of the dominant coalition. True. Then it says, if no purchasable patriot, radicalize, which is also kind of true, but not quite specific enough. The first thing she will do is the cheapest card with the most army and or road impact icons. So it's not just a plain radicalize. She's first going to prioritize just putting blocks on the board to hopefully get her faction back up in good standing. And if that doesn't exist, or if there are no blocks or anything that she can afford, then she will go down to inevitably her actions, and the lowest, which is always radicalize. So not only did they miss the most armies or roads thing, they didn't really need to add the part in about radicalize. So one small change. The rest of this sheet is really fantastic. Next up on Wakhan's core actions, use the red and black arrows. The red arrow will point to either top or bottom of the back of the top card of the draw deck and determines which market row to purchase from. The black arrow will point to a number between 0 and 5 on the back of the top card of the draw deck. This tells you which column to purchase from. If that card is not a valid choice, pick the next valid card to its left. If Wakhan exhausts that row, then switch to the original position in the other market row. So, in this case, her top action says to tax. She can't tax because she doesn't have anything out here. So, her second action says if military cards are favored, radicalize the highest ranked military card. So, let's pretend that this wasn't here. So we're just going to remove this from the game and pretend it's something else. Because again, I don't want to mess up this draw deck because I'm going to play this game coming up next. We have our first highest ranking military card, which is a 2-star here, not bad. And it would be on the 1 cost of the bottom row. Now, if, for instance, at the beginning of the game, military is not the favored suit, we would skip tax because she has nothing to tax with. We would skip this because military is not the favored suit, in which case we would radicalize. We would follow this same combination of top row at 3 cost. We would purchase this card. So I just put rupees down to simulate that we purchased and played, because radicalizes both. So now, when we can't tax, we're assuming this card doesn't have tax, it didn't change it to military being the favorite suit, and we get back to radicalize, we look at the top 3, no card there. And we look at the rest of this row, they all have rupees there, which means just like human players, we can no longer purchase these cards. So we go down to the original cost on the other row, and we are going to go down until we can afford to buy a card, in which case we buy and we play for our second radicalize action. So let's go ahead and dial back the clock and talk about bribing, because again, Wakhan does have to pay things just like a meatbag character. So we're going to skip tax. Military cards are favored. Nope, they're not. So we're to radicalize. Top row, 3 cost. Sounds good so far. So Wakhan is going to pay 1, 2, 3 to purchase this military card for Punjab. Unfortunately, in this case, I am the ruler in Punjab. I have 2 tribes and I have 1 Russian army here. In which case, Wakhan needs to pay me 2 as a bribe. Wakhan only has 1 rupee left because we're starting with only 4. If she cannot pay the bribe, she keeps her money, and she simply discards this card. So she pays for it from the market, but she made a huge calculating error, and she actually can't pay or play the card that she just paid for. Now, if I only had 1 tribe out there, she bought this card, I am the ruler of that region, she does have 1 rupee, she pays it, and she plays it. Which means she has no money here, in which case when she tries to radicalize for her second action, she's going to go to the other row and go all the way down to this outermost card. Now let's assume she eventually radicalizes this 0 cost card on the bottom row. You have to figure out where is this going to go in her court. This is another instance where you're going to take the first, or the AI card that's face up, and the next card that's face down. You're going to look at that red arrow, and it's pointing to top and left. Now, had her AI card had the red arrow up here, she not only would have been focusing first on the bottom row of the market, but she would have been placing cards to the right of her court. It's a simple operation. You just need to check that red arrow before you place anything. So in this case, her new card for Kabul will go to the left of the court that she already has. So next up, I'm going to start going back and forth between the book and this cheat sheet a little bit more, because personally, I think the cheat sheet makes it a little easier to follow. I think a big part of that is just having the action symbols next to the actions themselves, but it also just drops down the word count on some of these. But in certain cases, it actually flips the order in which the actions are discussed, in which case it made it easier to grok, at least for me. So this was a super helpful sheet, and the link, again, is down below. If you want to download it, give it a thumbs up on BGG, because I think it's been super helpful. So when she's playing a card, Wakhan will resolve the impact icons as normal with 3 modifications. So she will play, for her spies, she'll place spies on the highest priority cards associated with the played card's region, where Wakhan does not have the most spies. For roads, Wakhan will place roads on consecutive borders following the region priority on the AI card, which is at the bottom of the AI card. There's always a different order of the 6 different symbols that represent the 6 regions on the map. So if we needed to put down, let's say, 2 roads coming off of Kabul, we would look here at the bottom of the card and we'd see, all right, the leftmost is the 8-pointed star going to Transcaspia. First of all, we see the loyalty. I'm Russia, so she's green. Next up, we see the Pentagon of Kabul. So we're not going to put a road to Kabul from itself. But the third one is the square of Kandahar, so we would put it there. And you're only going to put 1 per. So if, for whatever reason, none of these were available, you would just cycle back to the beginning, and you would put a second one over here to Transcaspia. In the same way that if neither of these actions are available, you'll radicalize and then return to the top and go through the list again. So Wakhan's Patriots appear in the rulebook, but they do not appear on the cheat sheet. In the rulebook it says, she always plays blocks based on the pragmatic loyalty. Ignore the color of the Patriot. Impact icons for armies and roads. So that kind of goes along with her pragmatic loyalty. You're always going to hold that above whatever the card may say. So in the case of Russian regulars, it would normally give you 2 Russian armies, and then you would change the favored suit to economic. Since I am loyal to Russia, and we know that that means for this turn, Wakhan is loyal to Afghanistan, those 2 yellow armies would be considered green armies for her, and then you would still change the favored suit to economic, just the same. Now, a couple of reminders appear on this cheat sheet. So Wakhan's most and Wakhan's supply. Her most, whenever she's instructed to take the most of something, e.g. place the most spies or nets the most rupees, 0 can count as most if there are no relevant cards. So just because something doesn't have something doesn't mean it's not the most. If it's tied for the most at 0, still counts. And Wakhan's supply. When out of pieces, speaking of 0, Wakhan will take a block or cylinder from elsewhere. Priority follows. Tribes are greater than armies, greater than roads, greater than spies. Use the AI card to decide between locations of tribes, armies, and roads removed. For spies, use card priority order. So if you needed to put down another tribe, but you didn't have any more cylinders, you would first pull from a spy. If you have a spy on another card, using the priority order, you're going to use that. You obviously can't replace a road for a tribe, same with an army, and if you absolutely need to, you could move a tribe from somewhere else, but obviously she wants to avoid that because that may not only lose her the rulership in one area, but that could cause the overthrow rule. Remember, if you lose your last tribe in a region, that means any cards associated with that region in your court are lost, any political cards, and vice versa. That does affect Wakan just like a normal person. And yes, it is just as easy to forget that rule for Wakan as it is for normal people. Now, going on to the actual actions. So most of the actions on Wakan's AI cards are card-based actions. Unless otherwise noted, these actions will always follow the same restrictions as those taken by players. So she needs to have the actions available. For instance, her first AI card said tax at the very beginning. If she doesn't have a card for taxing, she can't take that action. Also, if she has a card that can tax, but she doesn't control a region, she still cannot tax. When selecting which card of her court will be used to take the listed action, let's say she can tax, but she has 2 cards that have that action, she will always use the highest priority card among those that could legally take it. Again, we're going to go to her card priority list that starts with opponent's card, obviously does not match, matches favorite suit. Starting there, you could feasibly have a card that would break the tie between the two of them. You're just going to go down that. Obviously, if you could take your opponent's cards to tax, that would be awesome, but that would also be cheating. Many actions on the AI card will list a set of instructions and conditions which must be true in order for the action to be taken. If these conditions can't be met, the action is skipped. If no conditions are stated, Wakan will use the following default behavior when resolving the action. Now I'm going to flip back over to the cheat sheet because, again, I think that these are easier to find because they have the little icon that my eyes dart right to, and they're also just a little bit less wordy, and in some cases worded more effectively. For gifts, she'll buy the cheapest gift she can afford. This gift will count as influence for all 3 coalitions we placed right on that card next to her draw deck. Building. She'll build as many armies as she can afford in the leftmost region listed on her AI card that she rules. So again, following the rules of building. You can't build somewhere where you don't rule. Betray. She'll betray the highest priority card with a loyalty prize where Wakan also has a spy. Wakan always takes the loyalty prize. Next up, battle. She'll battle in the region where another player has pieces, tribes, or loyal roads and armies, and she has at least 1 army. Once that region's chosen, her destruction priority list is tribes are greater than armies are greater than roads. So obviously you're going to go after tribes first because you want to overthrow the opponent. If no region is chosen, she'll battle on the highest priority court card where she and another player have spies. Next up, tax. Wakan will always tax players instead of market cards. If able, she will tax players with the most rupees first. If no player can be taxed, she will tax from the market, taking rupees from the leftmost market cards and using the red arrow to determine ties. Moving. Wakan only moves armies and does not require any roads to move. Wakan will try to move her armies to adjacent regions where other players have tribes, using the region priority on the AI card to determine the choice between equally viable origins and destinations. She'll seek to have only as many armies as there are tribes in that region, and she will not move armies if doing so would cause her to lose a ruler token. So, more ways that Wakan is thinking roughly humanistically, trying to not deliberately put herself in a precarious situation, and also move her pieces in a way that would make sense. So back to the rulebook, we have the cleanup section, which is represented on the cheat sheet by her discard priority. It's also on the bottom of her priorities card, her AI card. It says discard during cleanup priority. She's first going to discard non-political, then non-patriots, non-leveraged, most player spies more than Wakan, fewest spies, lowest rank, not matching the favored climate, and lowest card number. And last but not least, dominance checks and victories. Wakan will claim victory points and victory just like a regular player. Remember that Wakan is loyal to all coalitions, so she will be in the running no matter which coalition is dominant. So while you can win the PAX Premier in a surprise punch-out victory where you get ahead of the other meatbags in the game and suddenly it's just over, that will never happen with Wakan. you at least need to go for multiple coalition checks, because she will always be part of the coalition. She may be in last place, in which case she's going to get fewer victory points, but there will never be that magnificent moment where you are the only player at the table who is loyal to a certain coalition, and therefore you jump ahead by a bunch of points and nobody else moves, and sometimes that just means you win the game. Wakhan will always be, at the very least, getting some table scraps, if not leading in the dominance check. All right, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully that answered any questions you might have had, either if you haven't tried playing with Wakhan, or you have, but you were a little bit wishy-washy on it. Like you've heard, or if you teach game rules, you've said a million times as board gamers, it's one of those games that will become more second nature the more you play it. But getting to that level of comfort is sometimes a bit of an uphill struggle. I do really think this sheet that distills Wakhan's rules, her brain, from 3 pages down to just 1 makes a big difference. It's really nice to just have everything right there ready to go. So again, it's down below. Hit the link, download it, give it a thumbs up on BGG. It made my life easier. I think it'll make yours easier too. So again, I am Kyle Frost of Give Pause Hobby, and if you've made it to this point in the video, I would like to extend a hearty +1 boost to staying frosty to those who are friends of the channel. So if you would like a buff to stay frosty, because who wouldn't want that, go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff down below, and we will see you either here or in the house or in the car or wherever else doing something about board games next time. Thanks everybody. Have a good day.